Good evening, and welcome to this evening's Public School Education Forum, sponsored by Citizens for Responsible Education. My name is Samson Racioppi, and I'll be moderating this evening's forum. First, I'd like to say this event is being recorded by our friends at ComFilm. They're going to be recording up here. They will not be recording the members of the audience. We would like to extend a big thank you to the Newburyport Elks Club for graciously allowing us to use their venue for this event. Jim Sullivan from the Newburyport Daily News is here tonight, and we would like to thank them for bringing so much attention to this event. We are honored to have Michael King and Jennifer McWilliams speak to you this evening, both of whom will be introduced shortly. Finally, I would like to thank the dedicated parents, teachers, and activists who have stepped up to bring much needed attention to this matter. Just a quick friendly reminder, due to the controversial nature of this event, we've hired professionals to manage security. Because of the scheduling and everything else, we can't allow interruptions to occur. We reserve the right to ask people to leave as this is a private event. Should a disturbance occur, we ask that the members of the audience just remain calm, allow our security professionals to handle any issues in conjunction with the local police. And with that, let's begin. Tonight's agenda will be as follows. We're going to begin with a brief introduction about the group Citizens for Responsible Education, how they were founded, along with some of their findings over the past year. Then our two speakers are going to present for about a half an hour apiece, at which point we'll have a Q&A session, and then we will adjourn. I'd like to note that none of the members of Citizens for Responsible Education are being paid or collecting a fee for their efforts. Everyone is volunteer and do not get compensated monetarily or in any way for what they are doing. The group started in September of 2021 with a small group of parents who became suspicious after noticing a fundraiser for the Minnesota Freedom Fund on the Newburyport High School's website. It's kind of small, I can't really see it, but that's where it was. They began digging into what the fundraiser was benefiting, like who were the beneficiaries of the fundraiser. They discovered that it was a bail fund promoted by Vice President Kamala Harris during the unrest that followed the death of George Floyd. The parents also noticed a banner titled Anti-Racism Resources for White People displayed at the bottom of the page and began browsing that link. Their browsing led them to this page titled Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Anti-Racism Resources, which brought them to the book section for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Now, diversity, equity, and inclusion seems like the kind of thing that makes you say, well, who would oppose such a thing? It sounds kind of benevolent, right? But it's also a term that you might have heard of that's creating a lot of controversy here. For these parents, it was impossible to ignore the fact that it was actively being promoted on the Newburyport High School's website. Plus, these topics can be interpreted as political in nature, and the lopsided representation of the traditionally leftist causes on the public school's website also caused them concern. At this point, determined to get answers, and I really apologize for the small writing. I was anticipating you being able to read what this was. If you want a copy of the slides that I used for this presentation, I'm happy to set you up with them after this event. At this point, determined to get answers, the concerned parents began writing letters to the school about the content of the children's curriculum. Instead of directly addressing the parents' concerns, the school chose to delay, obstruct, and just actively ignore the parents' requests. So they organized and began their campaign to find out just what was going on in the classrooms. The group held their first meeting at a volunteer's home and quickly discovered that they needed a bigger venue because of how much interest there was about what's happening in the schools. The parents were not alone with their concerns. Apparently, others had the same concerns as they. Armed with these concerns, the group started digging, and what they found disgusted and horrified them. There's been active outcry from the community regarding Citizens for Responsible Education's efforts, with accusations that they label everything as explicit or pornographic in an attempt to keep children ignorant about issues like biology, puberty, or sex. This is a myth. We firmly believe that the content being exposed to our children is indeed pornographic and explicit without exaggeration. This book, called Am I Weird or Is This Normal?, was available in the Knox Middle School for children aged 9 to 14 years old. It contains sections like the basics of oral sex, what is backdoor sex, and contains graphic sexual depictions. I say it was available because upon checking last night, it's no longer available in the library or in the Sora app, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. This tells me, all right, you're picking up on this. This tells me that despite the insistence from opposition that these books are appropriate for young people, somebody from the publishers decided otherwise. Another book called Genderqueer is available in the Knox Middle School library, again for ages 9 to 14 years old. This is just one section of the book depicting two young men, presumably in a relationship with each other, sexually active according to what's being said, using age-inappropriate language with graphic sexual depictions of oral sex. This is an excerpt from a book called This Book is Gay. This was available to high school students, but from my understanding has been pulled from circulation in the libraries and in the Sora app. However, it is extremely popular. If you throw it into Google, it comes right up. This excerpt details how sex apps like Grindr works, how to set up an account, how to meet somebody nearby. What kind of message is this sending to minors, people who can't consent to sexual conduct with adults? That it's okay to meet with gay men through free internet apps that anyone can download? This book's called Flamer. This section details a so-called game between young boys where the last one to finish must drink the bodily fluids of all the other young boys. I'll spare additional details, but this is available to your kids. Now, we just recently discovered the existence of the Sora app. It used to be that if you were concerned about what types of content was available to your children, you could go to the library and physically go through the books and look for yourself. Well, now they have access to something called the Sora app, which extends much more content directly to the fingertips of your children through this app that you yourselves don't have access to because they only license enough of these things for the students. So in order for you to see what's allowed, you have to get physical control of your kid's device and look at the app yourself. Now, we're just merely scratching the surface of what these parents have found going on in the school system. To speak more about what's happening in our schools, I'm going to introduce you to Jennifer Williams, but first, we have this gentleman, and again, I'm bad with names, so he's going to work his way up here. We decided to extend him 5 minutes. He came here in awareness of tonight's event. I'm just delaying while he walks up here. What was your name again, sir?
You can call me brother.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Brother.
Brother.
Brother, come on up, brother.
All right.
We're going to extend him 5 minutes. I don't know if it's going to be a rebuttal or what, but he just wanted to have the floor for a few minutes to say a message, and we wanted to go along with it. So you want to come down here? Yes, sir.
Welcome.
Please welcome Brother Carson.
Let me say this, folks, and I appreciate the generosity from many of you just now and everything, too. And I'm sorry, my friend, what's your name again?
Sam,
I appreciate that. So I'm going to start off with my contact information, and I'd like to invite you to reach out to me. I'm not here to...
put the mic
My
up.
apologies, folks.
There you
Are we
go.
good?
Yes, that's
All right.
better.
I've never been accused of that before. Look at that. You can reach me at Professor Blog, B-L-O-G, at gmail.com. My name's N. Carson. And the only thing I want to say, you don't know me. I think some of you might, but you don't know me. But I'm standing here because someone loves me. And I'm here because someone loved me in a particular way that when I continue to think about the things that take place, as y'all engage in this conversation, I want to frame it this way. And I'm not here to cause trouble, okay? Thanks for the mic and all of those things that are there. The examples we just heard, I ask you to think about this in a particular heteronormative way. The literature and the things that exist that oftentimes are absent from our imagination, our memory, that folks engage and think about. I ask that you think about some of the things that are happening to young folks in the state of Massachusetts, but also in a state, in a country, the United States, to queer students who oftentimes don't see their identity, feel lost, growing up in a household where they live with queer parents, feeling invisible. And oftentimes, because of those things that transpire, one of the things that we see here are the rates of suicide that happen. We're talking about emotional learning here and what's positive in terms of emotional learning. But oftentimes, right, someone asked me when I came in here that I must be here to talk about critical race theory. I assume that's because I'm a black man. And for the fact that oftentimes my history is erased. State of Texas is banned, and I know this is Massachusetts, even a use for second and third graders to say the word slavery, because we want to whitewash and we want to forget about those things. And I know that's not what we're here, but yet when we think about the pendulum, especially in terms of what's transpiring, here's what seems to happen sometimes. The first thing that seems to happen is this. One, I ask you to ask the question, why Newburyport? And we think about why Newburyport, oftentimes the narrative extends beyond just books that we're seeing here. Because I assure you, there are other books that deal with topics in a heteronormative way that we're not fixated on. This must be some leftist radical agenda that's transpiring to get us thinking about things that are not healthy, but yet a lot of those things that have been taking place for a long period of time as well. I ask you to think about the fact that you have kids, and many of those kids, oftentimes, some of you may even have queer kids, right? Who don't see themselves and feel invisible, particularly when it comes to language that happens oftentimes to their heteronormative kids that are there. That's the only thing that I ask you to think about. The other thing I'll say, and I'm not here to proselytize or take up too much time, I'm here to ask you this question. What are you afraid of? And if this is really what you're afraid of, then you have to expand the conversation to think about.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Then, you know what? Just so we're interrupted, then I'm going to pause.
We're
Thanks,
not
Sam.
afraid
Sam,
of anything.
Thank you so much for this attention. I thought you weren't going to do this.
Nope, I
want to do this.
I got to stop you right there.
No, I'm pausing.
We're not afraid.
I'm going to leave this in. Hey, how about this, folks? Nope.
Yeah, that's the disrespect that I have gotten from that. Because, yeah, right? I'm a sister, right? So I, as a woman, as a mother,
I have not finished.
don't want certain things pushed on my child, my daughter, my son.
Sam, thank you for your time.
And yet you will walk away because you can't admit the fact they want to take our men and put them into skirts and cut off our daughter's breasts.
So here's what I'll say, right? They want to take our men. I work a lot with young men. And one of the things that I do with young men is I was telling one of the things.
Guys, I want to get on with the forum.
So here's what I'm going to say. I'm taking up too much of your time and some of your space. When I work with young men, and we're talking about young men, we talk about this notion oftentimes of, well, we need healthy men. Seeing men in dresses or in skirts or wearing makeup is negative. Let me tell you what's negative about the behavior of young men. Young men talking about oftentimes
our children.
I'll tell you,
Sam,
What I'm going to do, Brother Carson, is I'm going to reach out to you.
You reach out to
and
me.
we can maybe set up a forum on like a Facebook Live or something. We can chat as long as you like. Awesome.
Okay, folks. Thanks for the 2 minutes. Thank you.
Rayla, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you, Sam.
All right. So I appreciate Brother Carson. I'm sorry for the interruption.
I don't care.
Let's continue with the forum.